Welcome to another episode of CryptoTV. I'm your host, Ornella Hernandez, here to talk all things Web3 and crypto. Today, I'm going to fill you guys in on some events that I've covered lately, and we'll get into Bitcoin and Ethereum's recent price hike. We also have a special guest coming on the show, so stay tuned. Big headlines this week. Bitcoin's price surpasses $60,000, Ethereum's price surpasses $3,000 as its new upgrade nears, and Reddit reveals its crypto holdings in an IPO filing, and Donald Trump acknowledges Bitcoin believers. But first, let's start with a quick recap of some events that I've attended and covered in the past 2 weeks in Dubai. There were many, but I'll talk about two. Last week, we covered the STEP conference. The recap and all of the interviews that I did are up on Web3 TV, so make sure to check those out if you haven't already yet. And it wasn't your traditional tech conference because the layout resembled that of a music festival. And I'm not just saying that because there was a whole Coachella vibe going on where you could sit on the grass and there were teepees and crystals. You see, it took place outside in Dubai's internet city, as they call it. And it was a beautiful sunny day in Dubai. Not too hot that you were sweating profusely throughout the day, or at least I wasn't. And there were 4 stages where panels and keynotes took place throughout the day. But if you didn't want to hear any speakers, then you could always just walk around the many startup booths. And usually, when you go to these events, the startups or companies that exhibit tend to operate within the same sector or field, right? Well, not here. While it is technically a tech conference, I was surprised by the amount of industries that these startups touched, from sports tech to food tech to femtech, which is women's wellness. There was even one company that used AI, artificial intelligence, to help decipher baby cries, like to let you know why they're crying. Very weird, but okay. So it was more fun to walk around and discover all the kinds of things that people are working on. And not only did tech companies have booths there, but so did local businesses. You could buy artisanal soap, new clothes, and perfume. And the food truck selection wasn't shabby either. I opted for a pizza. But not just any pizza. This one came out of a vending machine. There's a robot inside this vending machine that makes it fresh for you. So it's not frozen, but it's definitely not wood fire burned quality either. I'd give it a 5.5 or a 6 out of 10. Not amazing, but it definitely satisfied my pizza craving. And after a day of interviews at the STEP conference, I realized that many companies that might be using blockchain technology are not explicitly saying so in their marketing. So even if they are leveraging blockchain tech in the back end, whether for supply chain logistics or record keeping, they aren't using it in their client or consumer-facing slogans, opting instead for more plain language, which it's not a bad thing necessarily. Ideally, we can achieve a world that is blockchain-enabled, but at the same time, it's invisible. Think of our cell phones or our iPhones or Androids. Most people don't know all the little chips inside of it or how it really works, but they don't know because they don't care. And now the second thing I realized is that there are hundreds of new startups being created every single day. The amounts of companies created each day, each month in the world is growing super fast, which is amazing. That means that founders and entrepreneurs are searching to solve some of the world's biggest challenges. Of course, most of these startups will fail. Statistically speaking, here it is a fact. But I'm sure that some from the STEP conference have the potential to grow and scale into very valuable ones in the future. Another event I attended this week was the Sigma and AIBC Eurasia Summit in Dubai. There are 2 organizations involved here. We have Sigma, which organizes global events for online casinos and sports books related companies with a goal to make gambling and betting fun, safe, and rewarding, according to their website. The other company is AIBC, which stands for Artificial Intelligence, Blockchain, and Cryptocurrency. So they bring exhibitors and attendees related to those sectors. So given all of this, the crowd at the latest Eurasia Dubai event was very varied. I spoke to influencers like Sarah Almadani, comedians, Netflix reality show actors, crypto degens, but also a lot of B2B Russian payment solution providers for iGaming companies, aka online casinos, and affiliate marketers. The Web3 TV spent 2 full days at this conference walking around the expo hall, conducting sit-down interviews, listening to panels, and learning about the latest trends within AI, blockchain, crypto, iGaming, and sports betting. And here are my 2 big takeaways. People love to gamble, and people love conferences. This is not news, but simply these things were affirmed for me. When it comes to gambling, whether that's sports betting, financial or crypto markets, or predicting political campaign outcomes, people love to make predictions and to gamble for money, of course. One company at AIBC called LiveSoft had a decentralized betting system with interactive screens at the booth so that attendees could connect their wallets, their crypto wallets, and put some crypto towards whether Biden or Trump winning the United States presidential elections this year. Or who will win the upcoming UFC match, or bet on the next Premier League football match. And when I asked founder Levin why prediction markets feel bigger than ever right now, he answered that with an increasing number of events in the world and access to them via social media, so even if you're not physically there, you can still watch it, people want to participate somehow and feel like they are a part of something. And if you put money into it, then you are going to be more invested in it, of course. This makes sense. So this led me to my other realization, that people love events all over the world, and especially in Dubai. In a post-COVID world, people love an excuse to go to a conference, a party, a meetup. They just go to see who's there, who they'll meet, to go mingle, to network, to eat, and spend a few hours away from the office. I mean, same. I'm at one event at least once a week for work, but personally, I can get tired and a bit drained from so much networking. So I want to hear from you guys. Do you all prefer a day at a tech conference or a meetup, or a day in the office? Let me know. While I was at these events, something very exciting was happening in the crypto markets. Bitcoin and Ethereum's prices were steadily rising. BTC started the week at $52,000 and has now risen to $63,000. Yay! My portfolio balance is going up. I'll give you a couple reasons why. Since Bitcoin ETFs launched in January, there has been a trend of ETF issuers buying up to 10 times more BTC than miners are producing. When there is a demand shock, that's when prices shoot up. Let's look at these charts posted by HODL15 Capital on X. US Bitcoin ETFs had record inflows yesterday, February 28, primarily due to BlackRock's IBIT funds. So in total, $677 million, and IBIT bought 612 of that, which is around 10,140 Bitcoin. So if we look at this other chart, we can see that according to HODL15 Capital, BlackRock has bought more Bitcoin than the total daily supply every day since the ETF launch. So in 33 days so far, it has bought $9.3 billion worth of Bitcoin. Thank you, BlackRock. And you know who may be changing his stance on Bitcoin? Donald Trump. He may have said that Bitcoin just seems like a scam in 2021, but the former US president and leading Republican candidate recently spoke at a recent town hall on Fox News, in which he appeared somewhat sympathetic toward the asset's growing popularity and less suspicious of it. He said the following: "I always liked one currency. I call it a currency. I like the dollar. But a lot of people are doing Bitcoin, and frankly, it's taken on a life of its own. You probably have to do some regulation, but many people are embracing it. And more, I'm seeing people wanting to pay with Bitcoin. So I can live with it one way or the other." But he said that he prefers US dollars at the end. And as Trump charts a new path on Bitcoin, Republicans could be positioning crypto as a wedge issue for elections later on this year. Now, if we look at Ethereum's rise, the price of Ethereum is above $3,100 for the first time in 22 months since April of 2022, just before Terra's UST and Luna tokens swiftly imploded and thrust the digital assets industry firmly into a state of crypto winter. Ethereum's increase comes as developers look toward the network's Dencun upgrade, which is slated for March 13. The upgrade is expected to bolster Ethereum's scalability and reduce transaction costs on Layer 2 networks. Some are describing it as a new era for Ethereum. And as the anticipation for Dencun drives Ethereum's recent rally, the latest rumor is around the SEC approving spot Ethereum ETFs, and that now it's just a matter of when, not a matter of if anymore. All this to say, folks, load your wallets with some ETH. And you know who else invested in Bitcoin and Ethereum? Reddit. Yep, the forum-based social media giant. As Reddit prepares to go public, the platform disclosed that it invested some excess cash in Bitcoin and Ethereum, according to a report from CoinDesk last week. While the company did not disclose the value of its digital asset holdings, Reddit described the asset's value as immaterial in a filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. When Reddit introduced collectible avatars in 2022 that were built on Polygon as NFTs, it garnered a lot of attention and traction. Over 30 million Reddit users now hold collectible avatars in a digital wallet, according to a Dune Analytics dashboard. In total, the endeavor has translated into $41 million worth of NFT sales for Reddit avatars since being introduced. Reddit is on the right path, friends. And an example of another company that already went public and is benefiting from its proximity to crypto is Jack Dorsey's Block, which owns financial services like Cash App and Square. Stock in Block surged last week to $81 per share after the firm reported total customer sales of $2.5 billion worth of Bitcoin in the fourth quarter of last year. Additionally, the firm reported that it held around 8,000 Bitcoin in its corporate coffers. That's huge. Moral of the story is invest in crypto. And to talk about another type of asset class, rates, we are bringing on a special guest to CryptoTV today. Don't miss it. Today's guest on CryptoTV is Alex Ryvkin, who is the CEO of Rho Labs. How are you today?
I'm great, Ornella. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. Big day today. Bitcoin is up at almost $62,000, I think, right now. You happy about that?
I'm very happy about it.
So what do you think is causing that? Why is it going up so much right now?
I think you never know for sure, but basically the market consensus is that the whole ETF narrative is finally playing out, right? So we had, I think, over $1 billion of purchases for ETFs from ETF managers over the past few days, I think 2 or 3 days, which is pretty much what everybody expected, but you know, crypto crowd is a little bit flimsy, so when you don't get what you want on the day one, everybody gets a little bit disappointed. But I think ultimately, hopefully, we're seeing what is the beginning of a consistent demand from the ETFs, maybe not to the same magnitude, and that's clearly a very bullish sign, which everybody picked up on.
Yes, definitely. Everyone's excited. And do you think that since the Bitcoin halving is coming up in April or so, right? So that's already a month-ish away. Do you think that the price might go down before it goes up again after the halving, or will it just keep going up?
I wish I knew. I think the Bitcoin halving is an interesting one, right? So it's a very simple dynamic when there is less Bitcoin out there being mined. And now the metric everybody's looking at is the level of demand from the ETFs versus the amount of Bitcoin being mined daily.
Right.
So if this is really what's driving the market, what's the main driver behind the recent price increase, then we can only kind of go up. At the same time, the markets tend to be a little bit cyclical, and sometimes it's very short cycles, sometimes it's very long cycles. So for the time being, after you see a couple of candles of like 8 to 10% a day, it's only logical to assume there's going to be some kind of a cool-off, and the halving is probably still sort of month and a half away from what we're looking now. And well, we'll see about that. Okay,
we'll see what happens. Are you more of a Bitcoin fan or Ethereum? Like if you had to only invest in one, would it be BTC or ETH?
That's a difficult one. I think somebody said, and I really like that one, somebody said if crypto is a religion, Bitcoin wins. If crypto is a business, then Ethereum wins.
Okay, that's a good one.
I think both statements are not entirely true. I think Ethereum has a little bit more utility, but Bitcoin has obviously much sort of stronger support from the community. A lot of people think in Bitcoin-only terms. There are way fewer Ethereum maxes out there. And basically, if crypto has taught us anything is that anything is worth exactly what other people are ready to pay for it. Right? So as long as
Right.
as long as we have a lot of demand and a lot of people who believe in Bitcoin, Bitcoin will be probably the safer asset. I still think, on balance, to your question, if I could only invest in one, I would personally probably take Ethereum.
Okay.
But that would be a relatively risky bet, I gotta say.
You know, Ethereum was my first investment in the space, so I might have to agree with you. All right.
Let's see how we do.
We'll see what happens. You have been in the blockchain space for a while before you were working at the custodian Rho Labs. So if you could maybe give another lesson or any learnings from your time in this industry, what would you say?
There are so many. I spent a couple of years at Copper leading product and technology. It was probably some of the most rewarding experiences in my life because I basically been with the company through the hyper growth stage. The learnings are numerous. I think keeping your cool in the middle of all that in every possible way, kind of as a startup, your first goal is always to not to die, basically to survive.
Survive.
And that's both in the good times and the bad times, right? Because in the bad times, you're struggling with maybe another round of funding or anything else. In the good times, you're basically struggling with the pace of growth and not getting, people are burning out left and right, and you have to keep things alive and keep your customers happy. There's a lot to take care of. So being able to kind of manage your physical and mental state, yourself personally as a business leader on any level, and being able to keep your cool and not to get too caught up in the hype or anything else is probably one of the most important skills for either an entrepreneur or a manager or anybody in that space, or an investor in our space, really. Investor in Ethereum, for one.
Definitely, all right. And so let's talk about Rho Labs and your role and what the mission is behind the company.
Of course. So Rho Labs is basically the company that I set up at the end of 2022. What we are building is a rates market currently on Arbitrum. Some of your listeners and viewers might be familiar with the asset class, but for those who are not, and because it's generally traditionally in TradFi is a professional investment more than a retail investment, a lot of people who are avid investors are not really familiar with the asset class.
Of rates. Right?
Rates,
in rates.
And
could be any type of rates.
Could be literally any type of rate, but the most typically in TradFi you invest in interest rate derivatives, and that's your way to bet on rates or hedge against rate fluctuations.
Okay.
And this is a massive market. There are funny numbers for outstanding interest, which I'm always a little bit shy to mention because it's in hundreds of trillions of dollars. And there are obvious explanations to that. Basically, everybody's affected by rates. Everybody knows that by now, right? So whether you're holding a mortgage or you're a bond manager at PIMCO with like a multi-billion-dollar fund, rates matter to whatever you do and to your assets value. So everybody cares about it, and interest rate derivatives is probably the cheapest way to, in terms of capital allocation, in terms of capital efficiency, the easiest, the cheapest way to either protect yourself against those fluctuations or bet on the changes in rates. So in crypto, aside from generally interest rates, which again in TradFi you typically bet on treasury rates because everything else ties back to the treasury rates, to the risk-free rate, which is, for example, US treasuries, right? So in crypto, the situation is slightly different. The market is not as efficient just yet, but there are lots of different types of rates. There are lots of fun things going on, and especially in this cycle, we can already see a lot of projects coming out with products focused on rates specifically. Like off the top of my head, out to the latest kind of loud coming out of stealth situations is Athena, for example.
Athena, okay.
Athena is all about yield, and that's one of the most kind of prominent stories in the space today. Another is staking, restaking, all that narrative.
Right.
So basically, we've got some rates which are either non-existent or not as prominent in TradFi, which exist in crypto and become more and more important for the ecosystem, such as staking, such as perpetual future funding, such as many other things that we have in the space. And what we created at Rho, we created a platform that allows you to trade all of those rates, basically. Anything that walks like a rate and quacks like a rate. You can trade it on our platform. Our first products are focused on, as I said, staking and perp funding, as we find those two themes most prominent.
Okay.
But we also have all the other things in the pipeline, including interest rates in a more traditional sense as well.
Let's talk about staking rates then, because there isn't a standard rate of staking depending on the currency, depending on the platform you use or the exchange or the wallet. So how exactly do you set those, or do you allow people to bet on these different fluctuations?
That's actually a great question, right? So that's pretty much why we exist, because one of the first, we are a market, right? We are essentially an exchange, if you will. One of the primary functions of the financial market or the capital market is determining the right value of assets. So in our case, the question, what is the rate of Ethereum, for example, in a more broad sense, or Bitcoin, or like any currency out there, there is no way to answer it in a theoretical sense. You actually need to let people to bet on things going up and down, and supply demand will decide the fair market price. That's pretty much why we exist. There are some attempts, for example, on the staking front, because there is a certain amount of, let's say, if you're staking Ethereum, there is a certain amount of ETH you're getting as a participant in the validation of transactions on Ethereum. But it also varies, right? Depending on the wallet you use, the platform you use, on your, I don't know, the server which you use.
Yeah, it depends.
It's not fixed. And people are already trying to answer questions, creating some indices and creating something that would be representative of your sort of average quote-unquote yield on Ethereum. And we are partnering with some of those projects because one thing is basically getting that index out, and another one is letting people trade those rates, essentially trade those indices. So we got a couple of announcements in the pipeline specifically for that use case, because we think that this is the most fundamental answer in finance. Like, what is the rate for something? What does the curve look like? What is the term structure of that rate? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a market specifically for that, for people to discover.
So then that makes me ask, should there be a standard staking rate for certain currencies?
Of course, but that will require some standardization. Like, should there be a reference implementation for anything in crypto? Yes. Do we have it, even for like layer 1 blockchains?
No.
Not really. We're looking for one. So, yeah.
Okay. And then tell me what else you guys have in the pipeline, if you can share just a roadmap for next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, of course. So we're an early stage project, right? We started just a year ago. We're now in private beta. Some of our kind of friends, investors, first clients, testing the product. We're about to release our first audit report, which is now completed. And for us, the next 12 months is basically all about getting out there and showing people, trying to convince people of the value of the product, right, to get that initial adoption. What we're really interested in on the product side is still probably along the same lines. We feel that the staking and restaking and interest-bearing stable coins and interest-bearing layer 2s is a very powerful movement in crypto, which is also very beneficial for us, because in the past cycle, nobody really cared about, single to low double-digit yield. It was sort of still 100x or nothing mode. Now people are waking up to the importance of income. And that is very... It's
like a way of passive income, right?
Oh, absolutely, like your dividend income or the yield you're earning on holding something, right? So that is becoming very powerful and very prominent, and we think it's great, and we want to be a part of that, kind of educating the market a little bit about the importance of yield.
Yeah.
And perps are still going stronger and stronger. Perpetual futures, probably 90% of all the futures volume today in the market, and it's only getting bigger. There are other things.
Those are the more risky ones, though.
Those
futures.
Futures. So the rates on futures are very volatile.
Yeah.
Right. Futures generally, it's a leveraged instrument. It's not options, but it's more risky than just buying spots. Fair enough. But rates on those futures can be quite volatile, which makes it interesting as well. Makes it worth people hedging or making it an interesting kind of speculative instrument.
Definitely. All right. And so, since you mentioned education, what ways? Like, what would you recommend for someone who wants to maybe learn more about trading crypto and also rates? Any sources or any tools that you would recommend?
There is, in order to trade crypto in an informed way, there is, I think, quite a significant body of knowledge that the industry has created over the past 10 years, and even more since 2009. And I think if one wants to become a professional crypto trader, you have to start from the technology. That's the interesting part of it. I remember back in the day, I stumbled upon Princeton Bitcoin book, which is now available online, which is like 12 hours of explanation of how Bitcoin blockchain works.
That was like a textbook.
It was a textbook at the time, but it was actually 12 hours of lectures on YouTube, which are now publicly available. And if anybody cares about the technology, this is going from the basics, from the cryptography.
Okay.
And then there is a lot of things. So don't go trade complex derivatives if you are not really at grasp with some of the capital market concepts. Unfortunately, most of the people who do that do not make a lot of money. So if you're sort of a new investor in the space, or the person who with a new interest in the space, just create some kind of allocation of your layer ones, layer twos, track things for a while before taking more risky decisions.
Okay.
In order to get on our platform, again, I would recommend that to people who are already familiar with things like perpetual futures or options in crypto. And that's a big community of people who are sophisticated crypto traders. Mm-hmm. You can find us on various platforms and ask us for private access to our private beta, but we are going to go public pretty soon, and we're going to admit the first probably a few hundred users on the platform soon enough. So you can go to our website and request a beta access, and we're gonna get back to you when the time's right in the next few weeks. Okay,
amazing. So someone can sign up now to have access to the beta release in, you said, a few weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, and then
it's a matter of weeks now.
Okay, amazing. That's
We're very excited about it.
Yeah, everyone go check it out. What's the best website or best way to get in touch with you?
I think the easiest one is Twitter, so we are at Rho_XYZ on Twitter. You can also go our website for the time being. We got a landing page which is deliberately a little bit scarce, but you can go to Rho.trading, and there is a request beta access form there, so you can try that. But you can always find us on Twitter or find me, and I will connect you to the right people if you're interested.
Okay, amazing. Now, Alex, just a few more questions. These are what-if questions, all right? A little bit more creative. So if you could have any blockchain-based superpower, like if you could change anything with like the flick of your thumb or your flick of your wrist, what would it be? What would you do?
Blockchain-based superpower?
Yeah.
Gosh. Any of the things that would yield me any profits, I can counter the whole thesis of our industry. So I think I would probably, if I could roll back time, there are certain events in our industry. Some of them were on-chain, most of them were off-chain, that were very detrimental to the community.
Okay, so time travel. Time travel
would be awesome.
Okay. Yeah, but then if, the butterfly effect, if you change a minor thing in the past, it might totally affect your future.
There are certain events where I would have taken the risk.
Okay. Were we talking FTX or something?
For example.
For example. Okay.
It could be one of those.
That's a good one. All right. And if you could make like a time capsule, and that you have to bury, in the ground for like 10 years, but you have to put something, it could be maybe technological or physical one, but if you had to bury something that relates to blockchain, and then in 10 years you open it up, like what would you want to find in there? I don't know, maybe it's your private keys or something, but something a little more meaningful.
Actually, burying your private keys for 10 years and then digging them out and 10 years later is normally a very profitable investment strategy. I think, hard to say, that the very interesting subject is, which is not getting a lot of attention now, is kind of AI and blockchain. There are projects out there which are backed by major VCs and major exchanges, which is still trading at like 10 times earnings kind of thing, which is probably a great opportunity. Like, I spoke to one of my investors recently, and he said this is your next layer one narrative for the next cycle. That's one of the opinions out there. That's not really what we do, so I wouldn't do it like professionally. But me personally, I would probably be looking into what can be done with AI and blockchain convergence over the next 10 years. We can probably see some very exciting developments there.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. So maybe some tips for that you would hide in there?
Some tips for that, maybe some private keys with a few tokens.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, the ledgers.
Maybe.
Okay, that's a good one. All right, one more. If you could mint an NFT based on a special memory, either in your career or your personal life, what would it be of? Like if you could memorialize, I don't know, maybe your first investment or something like that, what would it be?
Difficult.
Think about it.
If I could mint an NFT, listen, there's been so many moments. I was born in Russia. I moved to the UK about 13 years ago, and I lived between the UK and the Middle East for a while, and there were so many moments, and I think probably that transition when I first arrived in London to work and study back in 2013, I think, was equally scary and interesting, and exciting, and I would love to look at it again with slightly different pair of eyes in another 10 years, and then 10 years later. That would be very exciting to have as a kind of an everlasting memory, perpetualized on the blockchain.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we can get an artist to make it for you.
Please. Actually, I have to admit, I'm one of those very few people in crypto who never owned an NFT.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I guess I just, at the time when it was coming up, I was more excited about the financial applications. We were in the middle of, I was at Copper basically when NFTs blew up, and we actually created one of the things we've done at Copper. We created custody for certain NFTs at the request of our clients, but I guess I never got excited enough at the time. Maybe now with a slightly more moderate hype cycle, we can try it. Maybe I can fix that.
Okay, so if you don't own any NFTs, does that mean that you prefer physical art or the more traditional art market?
I prefer. I like the uniqueness aspect and the unique identifiers that NFTs bring to pieces of art. But I think that the pieces of art themselves, typically the ones in the real world, tend to be a little bit more sophisticated these days, on average. And I'm actually more excited about the applications of NFTs in the real world. And generally speaking, the way we looked at NFTs even back then is that's basically the question for us when we were thinking about custody for NFTs wasn't about like, do I want to custody that funny JPEG out there? It was more about, is there a space for uniquely identifiable asset on the blockchain?
Right.
And the answer was clearly yes, right? There are clearly multitude of use cases. So yeah, of course, this is a very interesting space. The weight attracted attention on the first cycle I wasn't that excited about, but generally speaking, we'll get there.
Okay. Well, when you get your first NFT, let me know.
Absolutely.
And we'll follow up, all right?
Absolutely.
Alex, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Renaud.
Everyone, please make sure to go follow Alex and to learn more about Rho Labs if you want to get into rates trading. And everyone, please stay tuned for the upcoming crypto market report.
Bitcoin is currently trading at $63,016. Ether's price is at $3,483 today. Sol is up 26% this week, trading at $132.96 today. And Shiba Inu is up 47% this week.
And that is all for today on CryptoTV. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to go follow Alex and Rho Labs and to check out all the coverage that I spoke about today on STEP conference and the Sigma and AIBC Eurasia event. And make sure to give this video a like while you're at it. See you guys later.